The Maxims of Methuselah. To know wisdom and instruction concerning women. Chapter 13. There are 3 things that are too difficult for me. Yes, 4 that I cannot understand. The way of a woman with nerves. The way of a maid with her dressmaker. The way of a damsel bidding farewell. The way of a matron who understands the speech of babes. There are 3 things that never satisfy a woman. Yes, 4 that never say, "It is enough." Her photograph. The fit of her raiment. A novel with a sad end. The wooing of her lover. For it is easier to find a woman satisfied with her mirror than a maiden content with all her names. For Susan desires to be called Huldah, and Sarah, Deborah. 2 things a woman says on parting. Yes, 3 speeches are necessary to her. 1. I have had such a charming time. 2. It is so good of you to have asked me. 3. Now do come and see us. Hurry not a woman's favor, neither force her hastily to surrender to you. For she goes into love as she goes into the waters at the seashore. First a hand, and then a lip she goes in by littles. She does not dive, she does not leap from the pier, but by gentle shocks and cries of protest, she enters slowly. Yet when the waters of love encompass her, then is she supported. She swims in her joy, she floats on the tide of happiness. For all her lines are drawn in pleasant places. Son, when you call upon a damsel for the first time, make sure you go alone, for a first call often brings forth a miracle. Hunt not in couples, lest you do not get acquainted. Eschew letters of introduction, which are the methods of fools. Be sure she desires you, and visit her alone. She will receive you willingly. The fool tries to woo a maid with tricks before he kisses her. He touches her hand secretly, sits closer to her. But a bolder one doesn't fear, he jumps up, runs across the room, and falls upon her suddenly, before she's aware. She's astonished, and she slaps his face. But the man of understanding heeds a sign. It is revealed to him what he shall do. When he becomes 3 parts sure, then he proceeds. For the 3 parts are even this damsel, and the 4th is all women. The fool tries to woo a maid with tricks before he kisses her. He touches her hand secretly, sits closer to her. But a bolder one doesn't fear, he jumps up, runs across the room, and falls upon her suddenly, before she's aware. She's surprised, and she slaps his face. But the man of understanding heeds a sign. It is revealed to him what he shall do. When he becomes 3 parts sure, then he proceeds. For the 3 parts are even this damsel, and the 4th is all women. My dear son, if a woman confesses her love for you and you don't share the same feelings, do not abandon her or leave her in distress. Instead, try to make her laugh and keep your interactions joyful. However, if she admits to regretting her past actions, do not hold her mistakes against her. Be happy for her change of heart and refrain from reminding her of her past weaknesses. Some women can be won over with boldness and direct approaches, while others require a more patient and gentle approach. But if there is no genuine affection in her heart, no amount of pursuit will succeed. Let me tell you this truth. Not every woman who appears to be attending a social gathering is necessarily available or interested in romantic pursuits. Some may be there for innocent reasons. When you call a woman and she inquires about your activities and whereabouts, be cautious, as she might be testing your sincerity or trying to understand your intentions. I have observed the competition among young women at summer resorts and beaches. But beware, you cannot always judge a woman's popularity by the number of gifts or flowers she receives. Sometimes, such gestures are sent by her family, not necessarily by admirers. The rivalry among women can have lasting effects on their descendants for several generations. Son, do not be deceived by a woman's reserved demeanor, for even a seemingly cold-hearted woman may desire passionate courtship. And she who appears indifferent might secretly hold a high opinion of an enthusiastic suitor. Do not propose to a woman when she is flaunting her new dress or when she is filled with pride from recent triumphs. Avoid approaching her during moments of reigning and celebrating her victories. But when she is unwell or feeling weary, when her spirit is low and she seeks comfort, be prepared and make your affection known. After she has had a long journey and is resting, while a storm brews and thunder roars in the skies, when she's enjoying beautiful music and the wine flows freely, that's the time when you can win her heart. And a rushed wedding is worth 2 when taken at leisure. If she changes her hairstyle, someone may have significant influence over her, and if he shaves his beard, there is a reason. When a young woman gets engaged, she abandons many charms, and her lifelong friends discuss her. Even her dearest sisters laugh and whisper scornfully. Is her ring being wished upon? Perhaps it's just a test of your commitment. Who can withstand a 10-year-old girl? She has many uncles. Even as one who wipes his hands on a new towel or flypaper sticks to bare feet, so is a woman who continually asks you if you love her. Gum can be removed from the hair, and ink under the thumbnail will eventually fade away, but a woman who talks too loudly in the streetcar cannot be changed. A maiden's first kiss comes with difficulty, like the first olive out of a bottle, requiring much skill, but the rest are easy. A woman who refrains from asking troublesome questions is as comforting as a hot drink on a sleigh ride. Educating a fair damsel is a delightful experience, bringing joy to a man's heart to counsel and teach her in new ways. A man may be praised for being straightforward, according to the opinions of his brothers, but if a woman is virtuous, she alone is to be praised. Son, when you are told that it will please you more to remember the duties you've neglected for love of women than all your honors, take it to heart. The bachelor thinks he understands women, knowing a little about many, and the husband is wise in his own conceit, knowing much about one. But a woman considers them both equal in folly. Just like someone who dips the mucilage brush into the ink bottle, so is he who says to a woman, "Beloved, how young you look today, how well you appear." When she doesn't enjoy all people, when she scrutinizes her mirror in the morning, when she seeks the youth of the land to enslave them, these are the stages of her aging. Who is more steady than the damsel of 23? Lo, she scorns the world, she writes cynically in her journal, she spits the ashes of joy from her mouth, she talks wisely to the old men and scorns babes. Yet, in another year, she returns to embroidered lingerie, she dances the two-step with ardor, she writes many letters. Oh, marvelous are women's ways, and most wonderful are her economies. On cheap underwear and on cheap stockings and cheap boots, she economizes. Yes, from the bargain counter, she selects her gloves, but on her hats, she throws her substance away. At the marked-down sale, you won't find any veils. I admire a thoroughbred, but I detest a cheap woman. She wears a solitaire moonstone ring but neglects to clean it. Even on sleigh rides, she wears a fascinator. She keeps 3 hats in rotation, and their change is relentless. Scarlet turns to mauve, mauve to magenta, and her hats are ever-changing. Last year's best becomes this year's everyday hat, and this year's everyday hat will be next year's rainy day hat. The course of her hats is fixed and never alters. She puts on an old silk waist for her housework, and the fresh morning gown is left unnoticed. Her white gloves remain soiled, and the button is missing from her boots. Her Louis Kahn slippers are worn down at the heels, and there's a hole in her stocking. Her Jaegers bulge at the top of her shoes, and her placket gaps open, causing men to look away. Chapter 14. Women are indiscreet in anger. Age changes women's perspective. Women are often the same in their behavior. They exhibit abandon and inertia. Many tastes and preferences are common to all women. The effect of broken hearts is also discussed. Who can find a consistent woman? Where is the woman who doesn't reveal secrets in her anger? If you've quarreled with her and she hasn't betrayed you to your friends, then you can confidently say that she is honorable, even whiter than snow. The young woman yearns for chivalry, but the older woman desires impertinence. And no woman answers an important question in fewer than 11 score words. My son, listen closely if you wish to understand women. Hear my words, for the women of the Pison are like those of the Gihon, and what the damsels of the Hiddekel think, so think they of the Euphrates. She is like a stone on the hilltop, not easily moved. But once she starts, she goes fast and far, her destination remains unknown. She believes that all men are vain and easily flattered. Let her hold on to this belief so that she may reveal her cunning, her ways will become evident. Her heart is older than her head, her emotions are the mother of her reason. She remembers anniversaries to the very day, and your love will be measured by your memory. She desires many things, and she is content until she obtains them. 2 things she holds dear, mystery and mastery. There are 2 things she cannot resist in a man. Sentiment, for she has a fondness for it, and a subtle man who provides her with good excuses. She doesn't jest at love until her heart is broken, and an unmarried damsel gains much experience. Chapter 15. On the banks of the Tigris, I came across a couple engaged in a passionate kiss. Startled, they didn't notice my presence, and I couldn't help but be amazed by the scene. The woman showed no shame and displayed the boldness of a lioness with her whelp. On the other hand, the man seemed embarrassed and quite flustered. I approached the young woman and asked, "Why are you not ashamed, and why does your heart not race?" She replied, "When he first kissed me, I was filled with shame, and my heart pounded intensely. I felt the need to look away. But now," she continued, "it's different. I've surrendered myself to this feeling, and I don't care about being judged anymore." She added, "Can one experience shame twice? I was ashamed of my feelings once, but now I've let go of my inhibitions. What worse can happen to me?" She assured me that she no longer cared about judgments, not even her own. She had come to terms with her emotions and had introspected deeply. Later, I encountered 4 other women by the river Tigris. Each of them owed me 50 shekels. The first woman seemed unconcerned about repaying, reasoning that the man I lent the money to was wealthier and could afford it. The second woman, however, brushed off the debt, claiming that there was no hurry and she would repay sometime in the future. But she never mentioned it again and didn't pay me back. The third woman faced difficult circumstances, and she came to me, expressing her desire to repay the debt but lacking the means to do so. Yet, she assured me that she had not forgotten my kindness and promised to pay me on Monday. The fourth woman, on the other hand, promptly paid the full amount and cleared her debt the following Saturday. Now there was a married woman who had a close male friend, known to her husband but not highly regarded by him, as he was overly fond of the friend. One day, the young man wrote to the married woman, inviting her to have lunch together on Wednesday at a restaurant. They met as planned and had a virtuous and innocent conversation during their lunch. That night, the woman told her husband, "My dear, today while I was walking in town, I happened to meet my friend, and he invited me to eat with him. So, I went with him." Her husband nonchalantly replied, "All right," and proceeded to read his newspaper. In a woman's eyes, a lie is but a half-truth. Chapter 16. My son, if you wish to flatter women, heed my wisdom, and do not be afraid or hesitate. For a woman is like a puzzling riddle with no clear answer. When dealing with a foolish girl, engage in serious conversation, but with a wise young lady, you may adopt a light-hearted approach. Address a married woman by her given name, so she may momentarily forget her age. Do not praise a woman for what she already possesses, but instead, admire her for what she does not have. Your reward shall be greatly appreciated. A witty woman for her beauty, and a comely damsel for her intellect. A wise woman for her jests, and a frivolous maid for her literary criticism. Praise a woman for her skills, whether it be a pianist for her cookery or a housewife for her mathematics, and you shall win their favor. But a mother with one child shall be flattered for that alone, for there the surest path lies. For I give you good advice, do not abandon my teachings. Unless she opens her heart to you, revealing all she knows, her love for you may not be whole, and she may keep some things hidden. When she presents many reasons, she can be easily persuaded, but if she gives you only one, cease your insistence. When she stops using your surname and addresses you as you, be cautious, as this marks the end of formality. When she encourages you to talk about yourself, she might either admire or despise you. Do not judge a woman's beauty merely by looking at the back of her head in the street, lest you be mocked by the wise. A thoughtful gesture carries more weight than many compliments, and a well-crafted letter can work wonders. There are 2 kinds of women who smoke cigarettes: those who wish to try and those who indulge in 2 or more. When she seems uncertain, she might be hiding strong convictions, and a stubborn woman can often be mistaken. Until she shares these words with you, 3 letters have I written to you, and burned them with fire, for my heart misgave me, you have not truly won her heart. The woman engaged to you should have no other romantic engagements. Before you commit to marriage, engage her in a game of poker, and you shall learn much about her. Listen to the advice of those who have loved before, for I have known more than 555 women in my youth, and my fame was great among them. If you wish to understand women, you must know both the best and the worst among them. For the woman who knows the least is often the one with the darkest heart, and the angel and devil are like sisters to one without experience. Wickedness wears the cloak of innocence, and the innocent baby stares from the deceitful woman's eyes. She hungers after the naive youth, she studies his ways and acts modestly. She pretends to be shocked, she casts down her eyes, and she delights in being taught. She laughs in her sleeve, she amuses herself with his innocence, and when he is gone, she reveals his foolishness to others. Chapter 17. Every way of a maiden with a man is subtle, yes, it is exceedingly wise. As she works on her new garments, sewing on the inside so it may not be seen from the outside, so she works on him. And when her work is completed, she enters and takes possession. I observed her on a dark night when she walked abroad with her young man, and she wore no other white shirt waist. Nay, it was of somber hue, that men might not see her. For she had not succeeded in her wiles upon the golf links, nor in the ballroom, nor upon the piazza, for he feared her much. Yes, he was timid, being simple and free from guile. But she said in her heart, Lo, what shall I do that he may be emboldened? I will lead him beneath a tree to rest in its shade, and I will sit beside him, meekly. And it was a dark night of stars, having no moon. Then said that damsel, I would that there were a moon, that it might shed its light upon us. And he answered her, saying, Thank heavens there is not a moon. And he drew nearer. And she smiled to herself, saying, Now is my time come, long have I awaited. Now there were 3 damsels sitting on 3 chairs, and each damsel had a youth beside her. And each youth placed his arm along the back of his damsel's seat, privately, and each damsel observed his act, keeping her counsel. And the first damsel waxed wrath at the youth's impertinence, and she leaned back. Then with her eyes, she darted fierce glances at him, so that he was rebuked, and he took away his arm. And the second damsel was rejoiced in her youth's ardor, she leaned back and enjoyed herself. And the young man did not withdraw his arm. But the third damsel knew not whether she was pleased or whether to wax wrath, for she was one without experience. So she made no sign, pretending not to notice, and she sat erect all the evening, suffering. Like the annoying sound of an alarm clock going off at 7 a.m., so is she who keeps saying, I told you so. But a woman who hesitates and is always late is like a step missing on a staircase, causing frustration. I visited a matron's house, and to my disappointment, I found a bore there. And he lingered. While his back was turned, she stifled a yawn in her kerchief, hoping he would leave so she could be alone with me. After many hours, she finally decided to leave, but he kept talking and delaying his departure. The matron began to gossip incessantly, telling him long stories, trying to hide her real intentions. I was greatly puzzled and amazed by the whole situation. Chapter 18. In my house, I stood by the window and looked through the casement. There, a table was spread with men and women sitting around it. And behold, every woman flirted with her neighbor, and the men reciprocated. 2 by 2, they flirted until the coffee was served, and I observed them closely. Each woman secretly watched the others, noting who was in love, bored, or quarreling with someone. They discreetly observed everything happening at the table, but their actions were subtle, they kept flirting throughout. But the men seemed oblivious, focused only on their respective partners, paying no attention to others. They attended to their own affairs, looking straight ahead, minding their business, and showing no interest in the interactions of others. After coffee was served, the women excused themselves, leaving the men behind, going to their rooms and gazing at their reflections in the mirrors. The women engaged in gossip, sharing untruths about the men, questioning each other, and using sweet names for their rivals. Meanwhile, they anxiously waited for the men to join them. Yet, the men leisurely smoked together, enjoying each other's company, engaging in thoughtful conversations. None of the men talked about the women in the house, nor did they mention any woman's name or discuss each other's flirting. Time passed joyfully, and none of the men wished to leave the table or the cigars they were smoking. Until the host finally intervened, announcing, "It is time, for the ladies await us." The men then made their way slowly into the drawing room of the house. The women eagerly awaited the arrival of the men with smiles on their faces, watching the door to see who would catch their attention. One woman, positioned on the couch in the drawing room, made space for the guest of honor, and he joined her, clearly pleased with the special treatment. The other women also smiled, though they remained silent, their minds busy with quick and unspoken thoughts. Give her the recognition she deserves for her efforts, and let her own accomplishments speak for her in the gatherings of the esteemed. For this is often the nature of a woman. She may wink playfully or shed a tear, claiming innocence and denying any wrongdoing. Be mindful that in her eyes, there is a significant aspect worth considering, whether it pertains to her affection or someone else's. These are the wise words spoken by Methuselah, the son of Enoch, in the 960th year of his life, to his great-grandson Shem, upon reaching adulthood. So that he may understand women and learn from his experiences with love.